for the criminal than the victim, don't you?
Senator, I worked on behalf of victims of crime zealously as a prosecutor. As a judge, I listened carefully to understand impact on victims, and I have always take that into account.
Do you know Micah Smith?
Michael Smith, Senator?
Micah, M-I-C-H.
I don't believe I know a Micah Smith, Senator, no.
Okay. I bet the victims of Micah Smith remember Micah Smith if you don't.
Senator, there was a defendant I sentenced named Michael Smith.
Mr. Smith molested a 4-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, he was convicted after trial of unlawful sexual contact under Maine law.
That's a nice way of putting it.
That was the charge, Senator.
Right. Mr. Smith molested a 9-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, again, he was convicted of unlawful sexual contact against 2 children. In that case, I did impose the sentence the state requested.
At oral argument, this is how Mr. Smith's conduct was described. Quote, you heard this testimony. All of the abuse is done in the same fashion. Smith would rub his fingers in a circular motion on the vagina of each child, and he did so repeatedly. Now, where I come from, we call that sexual abuse. You can pretty it up all you want to, Judge. This is what you said at Mr. Micah's sentencing. These are your words, not mine. What I can say, you said, is that this is a very tragic situation of a person who has a lot of good in him. A lot of good in him. Having done a very reprehensible thing to 2 young children causing extreme damage. Did I read that correctly?
Senator, in that case, I imposed the sentence the state requested.
Did I read that, your quotation correctly?
Senator, that I think is a portion of what I said at sentencing. My focus was on...
But the words I read, are they correct?
That's what was reported in the paper, Senator. I have not seen a transcript of the sentencing.
I bet the victims remember, Judge. You might have forgotten, just like you forgot his name, but I bet the victims remember. And then you handed down a sentence. You gave Mr. Smith 12 years, but you suspended 6 of them, didn't you?
Senator, that was at the recommendation of the state because
but it was your ruling. Did you? Is that an accurate statement of your ruling?
Senator, I accepted the state's recommendation that 6 years should be suspended so that Mr. Smith would be required to participate in sex offender treatment.
I appreciate the lengthy explanation, but I think it's a pretty simple question. That was your sentence, right?
Yes, I imposed the sentence the state requested in that case.
Are you familiar with the Bangor Daily News?
I am the Bangor Daily News, Senator.
Right. Did you read the article they wrote, quote, light sentences send a message that domestic violence does not matter, end quote. You remember that article?
I have read it, Senator. I believe it mischaracterizes a case that is
article was about you, wasn't it?
My recollection, Senator, is that it described several different cases. The case that I worked on that was described there, the defendant in that case was acquitted by a jury of the most serious conduct, and that was not reflected in that article. And so
the newspaper got it wrong.
That was an op-ed that I believe misunderstood what happened, which is the jury acquitted the defendant of the most serious conduct that he was charged with. I was not the fact finder in that case, and so at sentencing I was bound by the jury's verdict.
Let me ask you, I'm going to run out of time here. I wish I had more time for you, Ms. Campbell, but I've seen a lot of activist judges, and I'm not saying you're the most activist, but the list you're on, it sure doesn't take long to call the roll. Let me finish with this question. I'm going to end as I began, Judge Lopez. You have more sympathy for criminals than victims, don't you?
Senator, I have the support of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence and the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I believe that support is a reflection of the work I did as a prosecutor, as well as the care I take with cases involving victims as a judge.
You're embarrassed to answer my question, aren't you?
Thank you to the nominees for being here. I'm sorry that I was unable to preside, but in the capable hands of my colleague, Peter Welch. Judge Lopez.
In a tense and emotional Senate hearing, a judicial nominee faced some of the toughest questioning of the day as a senator accused her of showing more sympathy for criminals than for victims. The exchange began when the senator pressed the nominee directly, saying she appeared to have more sympathy for the criminal than the victim. The nominee pushed back, emphasizing her long history working on behalf of crime victims as both a prosecutor and a judge. She said she always listens carefully to victims and considers their experiences during sentencing. The confrontation escalated when the senator brought up a past case involving a defendant named Michael Smith. Smith had been convicted of unlawful sexual contact with 2 young children. The senator read graphic details from the trial testimony and challenged the nominee's characterization of the defendant during sentencing, quoting her as saying that Smith was a person who has a lot of good in him, despite committing reprehensible acts. The nominee responded by saying she imposed the sentence the state requested and noted that she had not recently reviewed the transcript. The senator continued to press her, pointing out that she suspended 6 of the 12 years in Smith's sentence. She acknowledged that decision but reiterated that it aligned with the state's recommendation. The questioning then shifted to a newspaper editorial criticizing what it called light sentences in domestic violence cases. The nominee said the article misrepresented the case and failed to mention that a jury had acquitted the defendant of the most serious charges, limiting what she could consider during sentencing. As time ran out, the senator returned to his central accusation, that the nominee was more sympathetic to offenders than victims. The nominee defended her record, stating she had the support of multiple victim advocacy organizations in Maine, including groups that combat domestic violence and sexual assault. She said this support reflects her consistent work on behalf of victims throughout her career. The senator ended by suggesting she was embarrassed to answer his question, a claim she did not respond to before the hearing moved on.